Good afternoon. I chose to research the cultural evolution of sports, and really what I've learned is that sports today are a lot different than they were several thousand years ago. But more specifically, I learned that sports began in hunter and gatherer societies in which sport-like motions were necessary for survival and hunting. Throwing a spear at a bison or tackling down an opponent. But as agricultural communities became more prevalent, the necessity for hunting to survive decreased, and as such, the necessity to throw a spear or kill an opponent also decreased. And it was then that the cultural influence of sports became much more prevalent. And that cultural influence gained momentum through the classical Greeks with their ancient Olympic Games, all the way through to the modern era, where sports are arguably a purely cultural phenomenon and no longer really boast any meaning with survival. We don't use sports to survive anymore. Hopefully this video will further trace this biocultural evolution. So how did we get from hunting to football? While the glamour of sports today stands in stark contrast from the primitive nature of hunting in the hunter and gatherer areas, the basic motions remain the same. Michael Lombardo, he is a biologist from Grand Valley State University, who I cite frequently in my paper. He writes, and I quote, "Popular modern male sports require skills needed for success in male-to-male physical competition in primitive hunting and warfare." So that basically means the football player today throwing like this is making a very same motion to a hunter back then throwing like that. In fact, 57 of the 70 highest paid athletes in 2010 used sports that required motions similar to those in ancient hunting and gathering societies. And this phenomenon, this evolution, can be transferred to spectatorships of sports as well. Lombardo, along with Richardson and Boyd, our favorite authors, and their theories of imitation, write that ancient sporting activity allows allies and rivals to scout each other. So men gathered and watched other males through sport to see who posed a threat to their survival. Today we see a very similar thing. Men gather together, dominating the viewership of sports to watch a game on a Sunday afternoon with their buddies while drinking beer and eating chicken wings. The only difference is that men used to gather in an ancient era to see who would kill them. Now they see who is killing their fantasy football lineup. But it's really the same theory. The only difference is that it's been changed in nature by evolution. Okay, let's now look at how sports have become, or really always were, a stage for status and sex. The financial, social, and reproductive rewards of being a champion athlete is hardly a modern phenomenon. David Smith, he's a scholar, he writes, "The masculine warrior mentality is a sexually selected trait bred into ancestral men by women who prefer warrior males." So that means women, in reproductive sense, is evolutionary, prefer men who have these physically fit traits, such as throwing a spear, being able to take down an opponent, and those same traits championed by professional athletes today. And that's an important conclusion, because it means sports have evolved in two ways. First, sports lead to survival and the continuing of the group, and that you can kill an opponent or you can kill food and you'll be able to eat and survive. And also it leads to evolution because it's conducive to reproductive behavior or activity that also furthers a group of people. So, for example, just take a look at this guy, this champion hunter on the right with a big slab of meat slapped over his shoulder, and just look at his grin. He knows he's going to have reproductive success when returning back from the hunt. And that phenomenon has stayed really the same up until the modern era, where professional athletes are flocked by women. Just look at Johnny Manziel on the left. He seems to be doing just fine for himself. So to conclude this presentation, I posed the question, why is football popular? Why isn't chess our national pastime? So really this answer is, there are multiple answers, but fortunately through the biocultural evolutional paradigm that we've been working in, we can provide several. First of all, sports that select for high fitness traits last. That's been passed down through hunting and gathering classical Greeks that have selected for or championed these traits. And football certainly has those traits. You got these warrior football players throwing their bodies at each other, giving each other concussions, permanent brain damage that we all love to watch on Sunday afternoons with our family and friends. Secondly, sports that people like last. It's really that simple. There have been certain evolved biases that make football more popular than, say, soccer. So why not soccer? in this age of American consumerism and short attention spans, football is just more consumable with its 6-second plays and blockbuster hits than soccer is, with fewer scoring opportunities and longer passages of plays that potentially appeal to a more finesse or worldly crowd. And that's my presentation. So I hope you've enjoyed it.